Hello everybody, we're here in El Paso, Texas, in Austin in Focus, your state Senate office, bringing you news on what's breaking here in El Paso and of course in Austin, Texas. Today we have a great guest, Commissioner Veronica Escobar of the County of El Paso, and I got to do a little plug here. I'm one of her fan club members. I think the work that she's doing at the county has been remarkable. Commissioner, welcome to the show.
Thank you for having me, Senator. It's a pleasure to be here.
We talk a lot about what brings people into politics. You know, it's not the easiest choice to make in the world. So what attracted you to get into running for commissioner and actually getting into government?
You know, for me, it was really very fundamental. I just love El Paso. And if I could participate in any way in improving the community, in chipping in to see some progress occur for all of us and for our families and for our kids, I thought it would be exciting and fun work, and it really has been. And it has been challenging. It's definitely not a walk in the park, but it is a tremendous honor, and I feel very lucky to have had this honor and the opportunity.
Share a little bit with us about you and your family. You know, every time on this show, I think we find out something new about a person that gives us a look into their heart about why they pick public service. And your family has a long and storied history in El Paso, some great leadership over the years. Your dad certainly was a major figure at the county. Tell us a little bit about you and your family.
Well, my immediate family includes a very supportive and wonderful husband, Michael Pleaters, and we have two great kids, Cristian Diego and Eloisa. And so if they happen to see this, hey kids. And I'm very lucky. I have a very loving and supportive family. I grew up in a family of 5 children, and all 4 of my brothers, unfortunately, left El Paso and never came back, and they probably will never come back except to visit. And a big part of that is, you know, they wanted to seek opportunities elsewhere, and they have found great opportunities elsewhere. My parents are just, I could not have asked for better parents. Isabel Escobar, she's still with us and very vibrant and wonderful person. She works for EPISD. My father passed away about 10 years ago, and Ben Escobar of the Escobar Dairy family. And I learned a lot from both of them about taking care of people and looking out for one another, and a really great mix of 2 very different type of people. My dad, I think, came from a fairly privileged background. He was very lucky in that he was able to get an education and do a lot of traveling and experience a lot of really great things in life because he had the freedom and the ability to do so. My mom came from a much different upbringing, you know, very poor family, a lot of struggle, a lot of loss early on. And so it was interesting to grow up with 2 very different perspectives, but generally the same principles and values they both had, and they instilled in all of us. My oldest brother, Ben, is an attorney in Houston. I have another brother, Emilio, who lives in Dothan, Alabama, and he sets up dairies all over the world. My brother, Gabriel, is in the Foreign Service. He's in Rome right now, but he will be in Kirkuk soon. And my baby brother, Esteban, is a chef in Austin at Vino Vino.
What a story. Talk about women in public service. You know, I like to think of myself as a really good dad, that I was changing diapers and cooking meals and going out to school and talking to the principal and being involved and being a soccer coach and trying to, hey, let's go learn how to ride a bike today, Zoe, it's a great thing to do, and trying to be very supportive at school. But I know what I was doing was probably 1/10 of what was being done in keeping the family and doing the parenting that needs to be done. And then you put on top of that the demands of public service. How do you do it? How do women in public service handle all of these different responsibilities?
Well, being the superior gender helps, which women are. You know, you just get it done. I mean, you know what it's like, you just get it done. You certainly can't do it without a tremendous support system. And the great thing for me, where I'm very, very, very lucky, is I have great women around me to help me and support me. And so I have a friend, for example, whose kids go to Mesita, and where my daughter goes to school. My son goes to Wiggs, and he takes the bus to Mesita after school. And she will pick my kids up every Monday when I'm in commissioner's court, and she takes them home and has them, with her kids, get started on their homework, have a snack, and I couldn't do it if I didn't have that friend. On other days of the week when I need other friends, they are there, other mothers who will help with my kids. And if I have an event that's going to take all day on a Saturday, then my kids will join other kids and have fun at the park and do other things if my husband can't be there for whatever reason. And so there's a lot of co-parenting going on in our community, especially among working moms in general, because whether it's public service or whether it's teaching or whether it's running a nonprofit or whatever it is, we all really depend a lot on each other. And if you don't have that core group of strong, supportive female friends, other moms, I can't imagine. I mean, it just would be very difficult. But also, my kids are of an age, thankfully, where they are a little bit more independent. And I can't imagine having done this when they were babies. I mean, I just think it would have been impossible. It was difficult enough to work a full-time job when they were babies, but I can't imagine, going to events at night and meeting with constituent groups at night and on weekends and doing everything that you need to do in order to be as present for your community as you can be. And so it just would have been impossible. And so the timing was right.
Well, it's remarkable how you pull it all together. I don't even know if you sleep. I don't know what you do to
do
all this
but
stuff.
I haven't slept for a long time. So public service doesn't change that.
Let's talk about the county. And a lot of people out there say, what exactly does the county do? It's a very unusual level of government. It has certain defined roles that it has to do in the community. In other parts of the state, particularly rural parts of the state, it's a major presence because it's a county that effectively runs the road system. In urban areas, counties are involved in health care and transportation. In El Paso, what are the top 3 or 4 things that county government does?
Well, and I'm glad you asked that because I still find myself trying to teach folks about the difference between municipal government and county government. And there's always a great opportunity in that teaching moment so that people can then better understand who to hold accountable for what. That's important. As you know, counties are an arm of the state. And so we have very particular responsibilities that the state tells us we have to carry on, and we have a burden we have to carry. We have to deal with law enforcement through the sheriff's department, the administration of justice through the courts and everything related to the courts, like the district attorney's office, the public defender's office, the county attorney's office, the jail, and the providing emergency indigent health care, which we do through a world-class institution called Thomason Hospital. Outside of that, not only does the state not give us added significant responsibilities, although we have a tremendous number of unfunded mandates, but those are the top 3 general mandates, but they also will not give us certain powers that we would like to have. And I know that you have been on the forefront of working to grant us powers that we need, but one of those examples is ordinance making authority. And I tell folks that the city, that's a really great tool for the city to have. So municipality, unlike the county, which does all sorts of things that impact our daily lives, garbage collection, the arts, culture, quality of life, streets, landfills, I mean, they pretty much do everything. But they also have an important tool, and that is the ability to create ordinances. So they can create laws. They can create a smoking ordinance that bans smoking in public places. They can also do zoning and ensure that we do our best to create good quality neighborhoods that are created in a very thoughtful way. And we can't do that out in the county. And it's very unfortunate, and it's part of what historically helped create the proliferation of colonias and has created a real challenge for a lot of poor families along the border. But while we fight for the ability and the right to do that, At the same time, the job that commissioners do, it's very interesting because there's unfortunately a lot of micromanagement that goes on. I mean, we essentially manage the county on a day-to-day level, and so it's like having 5 city managers instead of having one head administrator. And so we're focusing on day-to-day minutia instead of big picture policy issues. I've done my best out of our office to focus on big policy issues, but the challenge is balancing that without having an administrator. At the same time, the other challenge we have at the county, which does not exist at the city, in addition to not having an administrator, a main person, a chief administrative officer who is the day-to-day eyes and ears traffic manager like the city manager is internally for this huge organization with many responsibilities. Not only do we not have that, but many of our department heads are elected. And so we have virtually little to no power control over most of the department heads at the courthouse. We control their budget, and in terms of human resources, we take care of the benefits packages and such, but we don't hire the folks in their departments. They do. And the department heads who are elected, if folks have a complaint or a concern or a gripe, unfortunately, we can't do anything about it because their boss is the voters.
Well, I want to get back to the Colonia, so we're going to do that in Austin when you're on the show in Austin on the Senate floor when we try and pass for the 7th session in a row a bill to give you ordinary ordinance-making power. If you came to El Paso in 1902 and you're walking on Montana Street, you'd see that there were goats and chickens and mules, and we needed an ordinance so that people could live together side by side and not have the kinds of things that you have in what are typically rural areas. Well, now so much of El Paso County needs that ordinance, but there's no power to do it. But we'll talk about that in Austin. I want to get to one of your major issue areas that you've shown so much leadership on. It's been so close to your heart and what you're trying to get done. That's the Medical Center of the Americas, and the enormous great work that you're doing along with Thomason in leadership in the Children's Hospital. Tell us a little bit about that.
Healthcare is part of the county's mandate, and so we have an obligation to the state of Texas and the citizens of our county to provide access to healthcare. And in addition to having a moral obligation as a human being, we have that responsibility. But a decade ago, as you know, many people started working together to try to create better access to healthcare in El Paso and more institutions, which we need for various reasons, including job creation, economic development, access to more doctors, more nurses, more opportunities. And so with the creation of a medical school, Thomason then has sort of its partner, the other half of this very important healthcare marriage, a 4-year medical school. And so they work very closely together, and they prop each other up, essentially. If you can't have a successful medical school if you don't have the funds to hire the physicians and train the physicians and pay for the faculty. And Thomason needs those students in order to fulfill its function as a teaching hospital, which helps everybody. So it's a very symbiotic relationship. And if you have one of those institutions weakened, then the other one will get sick as well, unfortunately. But the great thing is that we have a great relationship between Thomason and Texas Tech. And the greater community vision, which existed long before I ever came into public service, was the vision of having a medical center of the Americas, something that would rival any medical center anywhere else in this country and would be unique in its location on the U.S.-Mexico border. And we are working towards that goal, and there is a foundation in place. I am an honorary member. I don't have a vote, but I am allowed to sit in the meetings as you are, as Representative Emma Acosta, who represents that area at the city, is, and State Representative Norma Chavez. So every individual, every public servant who represents that area has a seat at the table. And although we don't have a vote, we are welcomed and we participate and we are engaged. And the MCA is the keeper of that vision that you were a part of and have been a part of, and many, many, many other El Pasoans. And you know, you talked about my leadership on that, and I really have not done as much. I know you give me a lot of credit, and you're very kind and very generous with that. But really, there are so many citizens and leaders and philanthropists and business community members who participated in the MCA and building the MCA. And more importantly, we're actively engaged in the Children's Hospital, which is a tenet of the MCA, which is a partner with Thomason Hospital, a partner with Texas Tech. And these are institutions that help us grow more physicians, help us grow more nurses. I was very honored earlier this week. I was able to sit in and help interview for the first cohort of nursing students at Texas Tech.
Oh, fantastic.
And it was very exciting, and it was a real privilege. And I am given that opportunity for two reasons. Number one, because I represent the area, but number two, because I am supportive of it. And really, there's nothing to not be supportive of. I mean, there's nothing that anyone can say negative about this vision and this dream and this ambition. And because of that, there are a lot of participants, which is great. You want as many people at the table, you want as many leaders at the table, as many activists and donors and elected officials and anybody and everybody, because this is our community vision and it's a gift that we're giving to ourselves. So it's been a lot of fun. And at the county, our primary role, the way that we are definitely and literally connected to Thomason, outside of it being an arm of ours, is that we get to appoint the board members. And it's a very clear obligation. We should be appointing people whose heart is all about El Paso, whose heart is about healthcare, who bring unique talents and skills to that board of 7 people, so that we have a good balance and a diverse balance of representation from the community. And that's easy, that's easy. There's so many great leaders. My appointment is Tracy Yellen, who has a great history of working for nonprofits and has really been a tremendous leader in the nonprofit world. And she's also got a great El Paso heart. She's raising her children here. She's not a native. She chose to live here. She chose to contribute here. She's one of those great moms, and we co-partner or co-parent together. So she's part of that core group that I trust, and who I know will work every day to making sure that the community we leave behind is one that's filled with many, many more opportunities than we have.
Well, since you won't brag on you, I'm going to have to brag on you. And I think it's very clear that you've come to this with your heart and soul, and one of the major elements is the emerging vision, what happens at the MCA. And I think you're exactly right. There are hundreds of great people working on various activities, various aspects, from decorating the emergency rooms to the children's rooms, asking donors to participate in this activity or another. Jefferson High School and the magnet school there is doing such a wonderful job to help with the pipeline. You look at what's going on at Texas Tech. You walk in to see these nurses come on and be interviewed. One of the things that I noted when we set out to research and get really high quality investigators onto Texas Tech, it turned out to be the easiest sell in North America. Here's a guy from Harvard. He's number 3 guy. He says, well, I'm going to spend 40 years at Harvard before I get to do something big. I can do something big in El Paso, Texas, day one.
Right.
And that to me was the most amazing thing, that others recognized immediately that this is the best place to be. But your leadership in orienting the county to be a full, engaged partner in helping to pass with many others the Children's Hospital bond obligation that didn't get by much, and it took a lot of people working hard to explain why it was such a good deal. I think the county, the people of El Paso are lucky that you're there doing that leadership. I really do, and I want people to know how much you've done to make that happen. Let's talk about another initiative of yours. I think it's absolutely genius. I think it's something that's needed now more than ever due to what we're going through in the country with the economy, and that's what you did with the Shared Services Summit. What is that about? What are you talking about there? What do you see happening with that summit?
You know, that was such a fun initiative for me, and you know, just as I was explaining that at the county we have kind of those limited responsibilities in terms of policy, the great thing is there's nothing that prohibits us from tackling big policy issues. And so to me, that's the fun part. So about a year ago, I started thinking through how to bring all of the taxing entities together to create greater collaboration. And as you know, and as you said in prefacing your question, these times are really difficult, and the economy is posing a tremendous challenge. Consumer spending is down, even in El Paso. And although we are somewhat insulated, we're not completely insulated. And we don't boom and we don't bust, but we do feel the ripple effect of what's happening in the rest of the nation and what happens in Ciudad Juarez. And so consumer spending is down, so that means sales tax revenues, which we depend on at the city and the county, are down. We also know that we are probably going to be seeing some more shifting of the burden from the federal government to local communities, from the state government to local communities. Our incomes are not climbing as quickly as they should be here locally. While I think that we're going to have tremendous opportunities in the future, there's a lag time. We're not there yet. We still have socioeconomic conditions in our community that present a tremendous challenge for families. And in a state like ours, where the big burden is on property taxes, which is the most regressive way to tax people, there's not a whole lot of options, and it's not based on the more you earn, the more you pay, the less you earn, the less you pay. It's based on the value of your home. And so instead of the elderly seeing a decrease in their taxation, as should exist through income tax, it doesn't change. That's kind of a
goes up.
It's right, and it places a tremendous burden on families. At the same time, we can't deny the fact that we're growing, and the needs in our community are growing. We need more roads, we need more parks, we need more libraries, we need more services. And so how do you reconcile those two things? You know, the fact that our families are struggling and the fact that we are growing and need to provide more services. And to go back to the same families and continue to ask for increases in taxes, that's an untenable strategy. I mean, it's something that we can't continue to do. We need to be more creative with our dollars, and frankly, we need to do a better job of working on behalf of the citizens of this community. And we can do that by working in greater collaboration, so that when we build a building, we talk to one another and make sure that the same type of building meeting the same kind of needs is not being built a few blocks away by a taxing entity that's going to tax the same family. Or when we're purchasing gasoline at a great price, that we're reaching out to everyone else saying, come on board and it'll get even better, it'll get even cheaper. And I think part of why that's not happened on a full-fledged scale, because it's been happening, it's happening piecemeal, and it's happening in a way that's really, people are doing the best they can, because the burden on public servants, on local governments, is really tremendous. I mean, our public servants, our civil servants, are asked to do a lot with very little. And so it's hard for them to find time, and they're frequently not empowered to go out and collaborate this way. And it's left up to us, and things become political, and there are turf wars. And so when I thought about it, I thought, what's the best way to do it? Should we commission a study? Should we get all elected leaders in a room? And then I thought, we should just put all the professionals in a room. They know what they're doing, they know what's around the corner, And they probably have the best ideas, better than we could ever come up with.
Right. The genius of what you've done is to say, look, this wallet of the taxpayers, you're going at the school district and say 50% of the property taxes to you, and then here's the city, and here's the county, and here's the community college, and here's Thomason. Shouldn't the first step say, let's all get together, our responsibility is to the taxpayer, and what's the best bang for the buck? And seeing the world that way, I think, is exactly the way you've delivered leadership to say, what can we do, say, for healthcare? How can we lower the cost of healthcare? And one of the benefits of that is that you end up lowering the cost of healthcare for even constituents and consumers that may not be in government. So
Right.
I think that initiative it will have huge, huge dividends to the taxpayer and the community. Better services for less cost. What can you ask for?
Right, exactly. And it occurred this past Wednesday. And there was a lot that went into it leading up to Wednesday. We had to get buy-in from every taxing entity, had to get everyone to support the idea. And actually, I have to say, I'm very proud of our community, because I thought we were going to be met with a lot of cynicism, and I thought that people were going to look at this as a dubious effort. And there could not have been more goodwill and more enthusiasm and support. And so what we did was we tackled 3 areas. Facilities planning, so that as we're building buildings and roads and parks and libraries and such, we talk to one another about what's coming down the pike. So that if, for example, a school district is building a new school, well, is there a way that we could create some kind of a park, a joint park, ISD, soccer field, outdoor area that we could all share, and so that when schools are not in session, the city finds use for those buildings, so that we're not building added buildings. And so facilities was one of the areas. Purchasing was another, and what came out of it was a brand new community purchasing alliance, which I'm really excited about. And then technology. And in El Paso, actually, I have to say, we already are way ahead of the curve when it comes to technology. The leaders, the IT leaders in our community are light years ahead of any other community. I would put us up against the rest of the nation.
I think you're right.
Because they've been so innovative and thoughtful. But this was a great opportunity for the smaller school districts and other entities to get on board, hear about what's happening, and plan for more great projects and goals in that area. And so each breakout session, they were basically work sessions where the professionals were in a room together. Each one had a leader from the state, and the state comptroller's office could not have been more supportive of the project. And they sent 2 folks down here, and the Council on Competitive Governments also sent someone, and they moderated and facilitated the conversations. We had note takers, volunteers from UTEP, graduate students, who documented everything that went on in each session. And our office will be publishing a report with all the goals, with the timeline, with the participants, so that we can all hold each other accountable for this.
Well, we have time for one more question.
Okay.
And this is going to be a little bit tough, but I think we need to put it out there. When we look and read the newspaper and we see issues of allegations, at least, of public corruption, and I know you've been talking about this for a long time, even before you got into office, we have to look at our community and ask hard questions about values. How was it that on the one end, public officials taking money, a bribe? How was it on the other end that someone in business was offering the bribe? And what do we now do as a community to address these issues and use it, as you've called it, a teaching moment to make ourselves much better at what we do? The public is asking those questions. You've seen recent elections where those issues have been raised. What do we do? How do we move on that issue?
Well, and you and I have had this conversation many times. I think the first thing a community has to do when something like this is happening is have a very honest conversation about corruption, and a very honest conversation about the participants in it. And I know it's uncomfortable, and I know that it's unpleasant, and it's not something that leaves a good taste in your mouth when you do it. But it's important that you do it. And, you know, I was thinking through the other day about campaign contributions and looking through my own campaign contribution report and thinking through, how do we talk about this? And, you know, we just talk about it honestly is what we should do. And I've tried to do that with the media when I've been asked about it and been asked about, do you know this person? And what happened with this person, and did this person ever ask you for anything? And being very honest and saying, yes, you know, I know this person, and I've known this person for a long time, or these people, they gave me money, but they never asked me for anything. This other person did, and I said no. And you have to have those conversations. You can't get away from it. And the political community in El Paso is very small. And so it's inescapable. So I think number one is an honest conversation about it. But I think as a community, there's a recipe for having a good, strong, ethical backbone in your community. Number one, you have to, and this is the big one for me, you have to have an active, engaged press. You have to have a great newspaper. You have to have investigative journalists. You have to have people who aren't afraid to ask the difficult questions and do the research, and a paper that will stand by those reporters. The second thing is you have to have people running for office, lots of people. And a great newspaper will scrutinize all of that. A great newspaper will ask the tough questions and will help the community understand the issues and the things that are at stake. And the third thing is an active, engaged federal law enforcement arm, which apparently we have now. But, you know, all those things are important because a great newspaper creates stories and creates journalists that hold people accountable. The federal government holds people accountable. And when there's that much scrutiny and transparency going on, then the chances are you'll have more ethical candidates running because the light of justice and the public has been shined on what we're doing.
Well, I think you're exactly right, and you've been talking about this for many years, even before you got into public office. I think we face a challenge here as a community, and that is, will we go down the path of more truth, more sunlight, more ethical behavior in public office, electing better officials who take that pledge at the front end to do that, and then improve the way we work our public and our private contracting pieces with government, or do we not change? And I think that's where we are today to ask those hard questions. I want to thank you for coming today. We've had Commissioner Veronica Escobar with us, one of the most remarkable leaders that we have in El Paso today. I feel so great about the new leadership that's coming into this community, at the county, at the city. I think we're really on a path to some historic progress in El Paso. I think she's one of the reasons why. What I'm going to promise you is that come session time, we'll do another interview, we'll do another conversation in Austin to talk about what the county's role is, what they're going to do in Austin, what they're asking to be done, so we connect up the dots. So when on the Senate floor next time, maybe February or March, we'll talk a little bit more about moving the agenda forward in the issues that the commissioners talked about in healthcare, in infrastructure, with Fort Bliss, the kinds of things that we need to get done. And until then, it's been great being with you today, and hope you tune in next time.